Hello sports fans. Doing an actual bit of sporting today out here at the fishing hole. I got a rod in my hand and a line in the water. Because you know what they say, buy a man eat fish, teach fish man to a lifetime. Pokemon. You know, there's just something so great about fishing in these games. I've always been completely captivated by it. Whether I'm just pulling for Magikarp in Dewford at the beginning of the game, or I'm chain fishing my days away in X and Y, I'm always having a great time. And there's clearly a lot of care and consideration put into the mechanic as well. Fishing is given the time of day just like any other mechanic, and it definitely shows. It's always been a great time. But all of that got me wondering, what is so special about this process? How could I quantify this experience over any of the others in a Pokemon game? Sure, there's definitely something to the vibe and novelty of fishing, just on the surface, but I was convinced there was something more, something specific. There's definitely something here that makes it special. I was determined to figure out what it was. So I left my house, I headed north for my favorite fishing hole, and what I ended up discovering was that, oh, so sorry about this folks. Let me clear this up really fast. This is so embarrassing. So sorry about this. Let's get far away from this bird of prey and back to what I was saying. What was I saying again? I got distracted there for a second. Alright, so what I discovered was... Oh my goodness. This again, Pidgey? During my cold open? You have no respect. No respect at all. Get out of my sight. Okay, so what I found was that... Nope, cut the cameras, not doing this again. Jump to Viridian. Okay. So what I found in the end was an experience nothing at all like that trip here. The fishing was never an inconvenience. It was never an unwilling distraction. Fishing is great because I'm free. Sometimes I want to go into the tall grass, but sometimes I don't. But I have complete control over a fishing trip. There's still randomness, but rather in what Pokemon you encounter versus where and when you encounter them. I can show up whenever I want, I can go whenever I want, and it's still exciting. It offers you agency attached to the fun. And by no means do I hate those dungeon type encounters like tall grass or running around in a cave, but they can be frustrating obstacles or a distraction in any Pokemon game that has them. Zubat was very emblematic of this problem for a long time, where the Pokemon primarily held an identity as a cave swarming irritation stopping you from stepping forwards, all while the game has given you some unrelated mission, or you're just trying to get anywhere else. Fishing could never stop you in your tracks like this, but that's not really so unique to fishing, is it? Fishing's not alone here at all. That was just my way of enticing you. There's plenty of untraditional encounter methods like that. It's just another avenue of many to see Pokemon at your own leisure. A controlled encounter where you still get to see a random Pokemon, but it's not an obstacle the way a cave or a body of water could be. Untraditional encounter methods like this add new ways of having fun, variety to the gameplay, and then they give you that additional freedom that I described. So today, let's take a look at a handful of these untraditional encounter methods. Take a look at their mechanics and how they feel to interact with. Let's explore the joy of untraditional encounters in Pokemon. Pokemon has always been very interesting as a series when it comes to the mechanics of its encounters. Generally speaking, in early RPGs, random encounters surprise you with minions of mischief that are directly opposed to you. Whether to simply add to the game's difficulty, deplete your resources, or add danger to specific areas, they are strictly obstacles to be overcome. But yet in Pokemon, these encounters hide our heroes, our mascot characters. It feels almost like a mismatch of mechanics in respect to this. Zubat and Geodude weren't created to be hated and vilified just for existing. They were made to be loved, and sell merchandise, so they definitely need to be loved. The tall grass may be an obstacle before you, but you want the Pokemon inside. This game is called Pokemon after all, I gotta catch them all. So these are really only distractions as long as you're working on something else. Trying to get to the gym badges, dealing with an evil team, or some random world-ending crisis, you know, the mix. It's only annoying while I'm working on something else, whether that was dictated by me or it was directly given to me by the game. So a place where you go where the Pokemon themselves are the point would be perfect. And this was captured incredibly right out of the gate with the Safari Zone. The Safari Zone is incredible, one of the best places across any game. I am truly surrounded by beauty at the Safari Zone. Pokemon are everywhere, in the grass, in the water, under the water, in the rocks, and there's tons of them. There's a whole myriad of encounters to be had. The Safari Zone experience is always amplified by the sheer variety of Pokemon that there are to meet. The encounters here are like any other, but there's no battling. You just hurl Pokeballs at Pokemon, but they can escape at any time, so it's a lot more luck-based and gamified. The Safari Zone is that Pokemon lover's dream. There are so many interesting and new Pokemon to be seen at every iteration of the place, on top of all the exploration and how easy it is to get into. You pay your $500 and then you're in for the trip of a lifetime. I also have to appreciate that the Safari Zone generally boasts Pokemon that can't be found anywhere else. It makes the location feel even more special. If I want the pure, concentrated joy of catching and seeing Pokemon, this is definitely the place to be. Like, it just rocks. I can't say this enough. It's so good. Whenever I would play through Leaf Green as a kid, I would only ever have a small handful of Pokemon on my team and in my box as I moved through the game. All I needed was my starter and then a couple of other buds that I could go on an adventure with. I wasn't big on catching Pokemon just for the sake of it, and most of my friends went about things the same way. But whenever we got to Fuchsia City and its attached Safari Zone, our collection usually grew an entire box of 30. It's just such an easy and inviting place on top of everything else. It really sparks that whimsy. There's virtually no hurdles to entry outside of the incredibly low cost, and yet there's still stakes because the rare creatures lurking will try to resist your capture. Here's a clip of a shiny Hoot Hoot running away from me to demonstrate my point. As much as I was molding in that moment, I still love the Safari Zone. It's a Pokemon tour that's there for me whenever I want it. This simple but meaningful setup makes it one of the best places in early Pokemon. And I could easily spend the rest of the video here, but we've got more places to see, so we're gonna head to the next one. Moving away from the Safari Zone and its functional Pokemon tour, I want to take a look now at something more like a Pokemon hunt. Pokemon Colosseum and XD on the GameCube are very unique as games, because they feature almost no wild Pokemon, which is a really big break for the series, and instead replaces them with shadow Pokemon that you have to steal from other trainers. You get sent out to go take back the shadow Pokemon that have had their hearts corrupted by the villains. And again, this just rocks. I'm a bad boy. I'm blowing stuff up. I'm building my team off of Pokemon stolen from other trainers. It's a ton of fun, and it's unique. It's a great idea for everything on the surface, but I also find it extremely interesting from a mechanical perspective too. These games are also almost entirely double battles instead of single battles with other trainers, so there's a layer of management you have to do if you want to beat trainers and take their Pokemon. It's a hybrid format that can be really challenging and strategic, especially against the game's bosses. You know, this Pokemon is just dogging me, but I cannot knock it out because I need to catch it. But then there's only so many Pokemon you have access to, and it's a much more limited pool than usual. Not to mention, there's only one of each Shadow Pokemon too, so you really have to play the hand that you're dealt here. This makes strategizing really unique as well. There's a very real chance here to get ready for every encounter in the games, but it's still quite challenging. Colosseum is often cited by YouTube thumbnails as the hardest Pokemon game, and that's still tied to it being loved and fondly remembered by the players. XD works largely the same way. I think it depends on who you ask as to which one is better or harder. I think I like XD a little more for having more Pokemon, but I just love the way that these games work. But folks, that wasn't even the hunt I was originally referring to. That's how incredible and jam-packed these games are. They just continue to give. Now obviously the Shadow Pokemon are the main attraction when it comes to the GameCube, but I also want to bring attention to the Pokespots that are present only in XD. I said almost no wild Pokemon earlier. These spots are where we finally get that chance. The region that these games take place in is almost entirely a barren desert, devoid of life. It is the reason that there are no wild Pokemon at all in Colosseum. But in XD, it's been discovered that wild Pokemon may be making a resurgence, and can be lured to these specific locations if food is left out for them, hence the aptly named Pokespot. You leave some food at the location, go back to doing the shadow business, and your phone will buzz you whenever a Pokemon is chowing down on your snacks. I really like these for a lot of reasons. It's a more passive activity that fills out more of that tracking or hunting feel for Pokemon. You have to do a little bit of waiting. Not 6-hour honey tree waiting though, please be real. This waiting is based on in-game steps, and all that waiting time can be spent while you're working on the main game. This will always be in the background. If you're busy, that's totally fine. There's even some interactivity with the waiting here, because depending on how much food you put out, the feasting Pokemon will stay longer. If I didn't put out enough, or I really take my time coming back, they might make off with the Pokesnacks and be gone when I eventually show back up. But there's always next time. And you know, if you think about it, I'm really just doing a civic good here, because I'm feeding the clearly endangered creatures of the region and then just leaving them be. There's also great reward for engaging with it too. There's only a small pool of Pokemon that can be spot hunted, about 9 of them. But these are mostly encounters that you can't get on the GameCube in any other way. And this is further emphasized by Duking, great name by the way, offering you bounties for the rarest spot Pokemon. He'll trade you even more rare Pokemon if you can bring them to him, and then his have special egg moves. So there's unique team members and combinations to be had on top of everything else. I think they really hit the mark here with the more passive style hunting. And it's just a blast to work on the side of everything else in XD. Let's look forwards a little bit for the next one. Okay, maybe a little bit further still. Okay, now we're talking. Hidden grottos and black 2 and white 2. This is one of those mechanics that they did a single time as a gimmick, and I'm left wondering why it wasn't in every game after its inception. Hidden grottos combine the excitement of static encounters with legendaries with the variety offered by any normal patch of grass. These are little grassy rooms hiding behind tightly packed clumps of trees where Pokemon might be waiting for you. There's light scattering in from the outside, this little square patch of grass. The details make you feel like you're discovering something, that you found something really special. It also seems like something that should just be happening in this world. A Pokemon hiding deeper in the woods, perhaps an unusual one of a kind even for this area. Something like the giant Dragonite at the lighthouse in the original anime. There actually is a 1% Dragonite at one of the grottos, so it's just like that. It's not always going to be Dragonite, but the reward is definitely baked in. Whether or not the Pokemon here are some super rare creature of myth, they do come with their hidden abilities, something Gen 5 was really emphasizing at the time. They're called hidden grottos, so their abilities are hidden. Folks, I think we're onto something big. Getting an entirely new ability like this was a seriously big deal. The same Pokemon could end up functioning a lot differently. Like the initial Minccino that you get when the feature is demoed for you comes with Skill Link instead of its usual abilities. And this makes its multi-hit moves hit the maximum 5 times by default. And Minccino can quickly go from 0 to hero with this new power. So not only is this just fun, I do think there's a level to it that is just fun, but they're also uniquely strong Pokemon to be had for engaging with it. Another home run dinger for new ways to engage with this world and its Pokemon. Of course the feature never returned, but hey, what are you gonna do? Next I want to look at something from the 3DS era on Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Probably my favorite of these and what I consider one of the best systems for catching Pokemon is here with the DexNav feature, a component of the newly upgraded PokeNav. DexNav primarily acts as a handy tool that uses the touchscreen to easily visualize what Pokemon you've already caught on a route, the ones you may have missed, and even a completion marker for your progress on that route. This is already incredibly handy. It seamlessly removes any monotony encountered scrolling the Pokédex by quickly showing you what's in the area, given that you've seen it before, and how close you are to completing that given location. I really appreciate this second component of it, because I think it can be very hard to know when you're done for any given place. Like, remember Tynamo in Chargestone Cave? Yeah, I only do because of Cerebi. I very much would have missed its 2% encounter rate otherwise. So the straightforward, you caught them all, badges are extremely welcome here. I love all that. It's really helpful stuff. But what really puts it over the top is its encounter system. When you're near tall grass, the DexNav might pick up a Pokemon on its radar, and then you'll see them shaking their tails out in the overworld. If you've never seen a Pokemon before and it shows up this way, you'll just be shown its silhouette and the Pokemon's level on the pop-up. But the more times you've seen a Pokemon, the individual number, the more information gets revealed to you on the pop-up. Eventually you're seeing things like what level it is, how good its IVs are, special egg moves it has even. These Pokemon can get all sorts of great and unusual bonuses as your score goes up. And once you own a Pokemon, DexNav even allows you to manually search for it in its habitat. DexNav Pokemon get better and better as you keep interacting with the function, and every Pokemon has its own DexNav score in this way. This is the great part. DexNav is that gift that just keeps on giving. But there's two elements to it that I want to give specific focus to. The DexNav works so well because it operates by giving you seamless, unintrusive notifications. There's a Pokemon over there. That might be pretty good even, but no pressure. To this end, it's a near perfect usage of the touchscreen to enrich the previously single-screen experience of the Hoenn games, giving the world further interactivity that doesn't impede on the original feel in any way. On top of that, the scoring system lets you specialize or obsess over that Pokemon that you're particularly interested in. It shines in this way very similarly to the Gen 4 and 6 Pokeradar, but I really think it does a better job because it has this permanent stacking score that never gets taken away from you. I still love the Pokeradar, don't get me wrong, but I find DexNav to be a much more complete and integrated tool. It makes ORAS all that more incredible, another thing I wouldn't have minded to see become a series staple. But you know, as far as the actual series staples go, the future, for once, seems pretty bright. Because you may have realized or put together by now, Pokemon has completely moved into the thing that I'm talking about. And that's the long-awaited addition of complete overworld free roam encounters. Kind of the answer to the problem I posed all the way back at the beginning of this. Pokemon aren't a distraction or an ambush anymore. They are the point. They're out and about when you need them, and you can move on when you don't. Pokemon has always been moving towards this. I've been describing the mechanics and details of it, but this is finally the magic we've always imagined. No, it's definitely not perfect right now, but this is finally the landscape where it could be. Pokemon roaming the plains like they do in our imagination, out and about, having their own lives. You can see them doing their business, specifics of the habitat, how they behave in groups. Battling is practically the same as it's always been. It's just so much better to actually get there. These not so random encounters feel like the way Pokemon was always supposed to be. For me, this system is as good as it's ever been, but I still hope they keep finding ways to mix it up, because it's a real treat whenever they do. That's all I got for you folks. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. This was by no means a comprehensive list, just some of my favorites, rolling over the good memories. Let me know your favorite ways to run into Pokemon down below if I didn't get your favorites or just what you thought of the video. But I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Droomish out.